The last bus already left. You're freezing. I have a truck and a heater. Come with me.
I don't even know you.
My name is Nathan, and my daughter picked you. That's enough for me.
Who is that little girl watching us?
That's Callie. She's 4. She's the one who told me to stop.
Say yes.
Come with me. Single dad found a paralyzed girl at the bus stop, then took her home. The snow had been falling for 3 hours by the time Nathan Cole noticed her. He almost didn't. The parking lot of the Riverside Mall was mostly empty at 9:40 on a Friday night. The stores had closed at 9, the last few cars pulling out in a slow procession of headlights. And Nathan was already running late because Callie had fallen asleep in the back seat somewhere between the pharmacy and the mall, and he hadn't had the heart to wake her until the last errand was done. She was 4 years old, and she slept the way small children do, completely, with total commitment. Curly red hair fanned across the car seat, one small fist pressed to her cheek. He'd carried her into the pharmacy still sleeping, settled her against his shoulder while he waited for the prescription, carried her back out. She'd barely stirred. Now she was awake, pressed against the window of his truck with her nose to the glass, watching the snow fall in the lamplight. "Daddy," she said, "there's a lady." Nathan had been about to pull out of the parking spot. He stopped. "Where, Bug?" "At the bus stop." She pointed with one small finger. "She's cold." He looked. The bus stop was at the far edge of the parking lot, a narrow metal shelter with a plastic roof that did almost nothing against the wind. The bench inside was empty. But beside the bench, just outside the shelter's thin protection, sat a young woman in a wheelchair. She was wearing a red dress. Not a winter dress. A regular dress, short-sleeved. The kind you'd wear to a dinner or a party, not to sit in the snow at nearly 10 o'clock at night. She had a brown leather bag in her lap. Her long blonde hair was dusted white with snowflakes. Her hands were in her own lap, not moving. She wasn't looking at her phone. She wasn't looking at anything in particular. She was just sitting there, very still in the falling snow. Nathan sat for a moment. Callie's finger was still pressed to the window. "Is she waiting for the bus?" "Last bus on this route ran at 9, Nathan said, mostly to himself. He'd taken it once years ago when his truck was in the shop. He put the truck in park. Her name was Sophie Arden. She was 27 years old, and she had been sitting at that bus stop for 1 hour and 40 minutes. She didn't tell him all of that immediately. What she told him first when he walked over through the snow and crouched down to her level so he wasn't looming over her was, "I'm fine, thank you." She said it the way people say things they don't entirely mean but have practiced enough that it comes out smooth. "Last bus ran at 9, he said. "I know." A pause. "I must have missed it." He didn't ask how. He just looked at her. The red dress, the snow in her hair, the slight blue tinge along her lips that she was doing her best to ignore, and said, "My name is Nathan. I have a truck and a heater. Come with me." She looked at him. She had very clear blue eyes, the kind that showed everything whether she wanted them to or not. "I don't know you," she said. "That's fair," he said. "I have a 4-year-old in the back seat if that helps. She's the one who spotted you. She made me come over." Sophie looked past him at the truck. In the back window, pressed against the glass, was a small round face surrounded by a halo of red curls, watching with solemn intensity. Something shifted slightly in Sophie's expression. "She looks like she's conducting an inspection," she said. "She usually is," Nathan said. "She's very thorough." A beat of silence. Snow fell between them. "There's a motel 3 blocks from here," Sophie said. "If you could just—" "It's closed," Nathan said. "Pipe burst last week. I drove past it this morning." She went quiet. He waited, not pushing. The snow came down. "I'm not a charity case," she said finally. There was no heat in it. Just a statement she seemed to need to make. "I know," he said. "You're a person sitting in the snow at 10 o'clock at night, and I'm a person with a warm truck. That's the whole situation." She looked at him for another long moment with those clear blue eyes. Then she said, "Okay." Getting the wheelchair into the truck bed took some doing, and Sophie managed the transfer into the passenger seat with a practiced efficiency that told him she'd been doing it for long enough that it had stopped requiring explanation. He didn't offer help she didn't ask for. When she was settled, he folded the chair and lifted it into the back without comment. Callie, in the back seat, watched all of this with her chin on her arms on the center console. "Your hair is the same color as snow," she told Sophie. Almost, Sophie said. It's mostly just wet. I have curly hair, Callie offered. It's red. I can see that. It's very nice hair. Callie considered this information and apparently found it satisfactory. She sat back. Nathan got in, turned the heat up, and pulled out of the parking lot. Where are you staying? He asked. A pause just slightly too long. I was going to figure that out. He glanced at her. She was looking straight ahead, jaw set, hands folded in her lap, the posture of someone accustomed to solving problems alone and not entirely sure what to do when the problem had gotten bigger than usual. What happened tonight? He asked. Not prying, just asking. Another pause. Then quietly, I had an interview this afternoon. In the city. I took the bus down and then the interview ran late, and then I couldn't reach my ride and then my phone died. She said it in a flat, factual sequence, the way you recount a series of small disasters when you've already processed the emotion, and what's left is just the information. I've been at that bus stop since 8, in that dress, he said. It's the only dress I own that photographs well, she said, with a wry flatness that made him want to smile. Where are you from? Millbrook, about 40 miles north. You have people there? My mother? A beat. We're not currently speaking. He nodded and didn't push further. They drove in silence for a moment. Callie had fallen asleep again in the back seat, with the sudden completeness of small children. The heater hummed. The snow moved sideways through the headlights. You can stay tonight, Nathan said. I have a couch. It's a good couch. I've slept on it myself more than once. In the morning when your phone's charged, you can sort out your next step. Nathan, the alternative is I drop you somewhere in the snow at 10:30 at night, and then I won't sleep because I'll be thinking about it. He said it matter-of-factly. So really you'd be doing me a favor. She was quiet for a moment. That's a very convenient argument, she said. I've been told I'm good at those. From the back seat, without opening her eyes, Callie said, Say yes. Sophie turned around. Callie was apparently not as asleep as she'd appeared. You should listen to her, Nathan said. She's almost always right. Sophie turned back. Outside, the snow was still falling, thick and quiet, across the empty roads. Okay, she said, for the second time that night. Thank you. His house was a 1970s split level on a quiet street, the kind of house that looked like it was being actively improved by someone who was doing it themselves, gradually between other things. One wall of the living room was freshly painted, the kitchen cabinets were half refinished. A small Christmas tree in the corner was decorated with a combination of store-bought ornaments and what were clearly Callie's contributions. Paper chains, crayon drawings laminated and hung with ribbon. A star at the top made of popsicle sticks and glitter. She did most of it, Nathan said, carrying Callie in from the truck. I can tell, Sophie said. It's the best tree I've seen this year. He settled Callie into bed, came back out, and showed Sophie the bathroom, the linen closet, the phone charger on the kitchen counter. She plugged in her phone. The screen came to life with a cascade of missed calls. 2 from an unknown number she didn't recognize, 1 from her mother. She stared at her mother's name for a moment. Nathan, who was filling a glass of water in the kitchen and therefore not looking at her, said, You don't have to call anyone tonight. How do you do that? She asked. Do what? Know exactly what to say without looking. He set the glass down and turned around. He was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, and in the kitchen light he looked less like a stranger, which she supposed he technically still was, and more like exactly what he was, someone tired from a long day, being decent about it, expecting nothing back. I have a 4-year-old, he said. You learn to read the room. She smiled. It was the first real smile she'd managed since about 7:30, and it surprised her with how easily it came. His wife had left 3 years ago. He didn't tell her that night. He told her the next morning over coffee, when Callie was still asleep and the snow had stopped and the yard outside was blanketed in clean white silence. He told her simply and without self-pity, the way people tell things when they've had enough time to understand them. She wasn't cruel about it, he said. She just wasn't built for this particular life. Millbrook, the house, the pace of it. She needed something faster. He wrapped both hands around his mug. Callie was 18 months. She doesn't really remember. Does she ask about her? Sometimes. I answer honestly and age appropriately. A pause, which changes as she gets older. Sophie looked at her own coffee. My accident was 4 years ago, she said. It was the first time she'd offered it without being asked. Car, intersection in the rain. Nothing dramatic, just a regular Tuesday in October, and then everything was different. She turned the mug in her hands. I was a dance teacher. He didn't say the things people usually said. He didn't say I'm so sorry in the tone that means how terrible and how lucky I am not to be you. He just nodded and waited in case there was more. There was more. I spent about a year being very angry, she said, which I think was reasonable. And then I spent another year being sad, which was also reasonable. And then I decided that the 2 years were enough and I needed to start being something else. She paused. That's easier to decide than to do. Yes, he said. I imagine it is. The interview yesterday was for an adaptive dance program at a community center in the city, working with kids and adults in wheelchairs, teaching modified movement. She looked at her coffee. It went well, I think. They said they'd call this week. That's a good thing, he said. It's a terrifying thing, she said, but yes, also good. Callie came downstairs at 7:45 in her pajamas, and a pair of rain boots that she'd apparently decided were necessary, stopped at the kitchen doorway, regarded Sophie with a focused assessment of someone confirming that yesterday had actually happened, and then climbed up into the chair beside her without being invited. Are you staying for breakfast? She asked. Callie, Nathan started. I was thinking about it, Sophie said. Callie nodded, satisfied, as if this had been the correct answer to a question on a test she'd designed herself. She stayed for breakfast. Then the snow on the roads kept her through lunch, which Nathan made, grilled cheese, tomato soup, the particular unpretentious competence of someone who cooked for a small child every day and had gotten good at it. Then Callie asked if Sophie could teach her something about dancing, and Sophie said that she could teach her about rhythm and movement, even from a chair. And they spent 45 minutes in the living room with Nathan's phone playing music, while Sophie demonstrated how you could find dance in your hands, your shoulders, your expression, the tilt of your head. How dance was not only legs, had never only been legs, had always been about the decision to move through music in whatever way your body allowed. Callie was a very serious student. Nathan stood in the doorway of the living room and watched, and felt something shift in the architecture of his ordinary day. She got the call on Tuesday. She texted him because she didn't overthink it. It felt like the natural thing, the way you tell someone good news when they're the person who was there at the beginning of it. They offered me the position. His response came in under a minute. Callie will want a full report. She considers herself involved. Sophie laughed at her phone in the parking lot of the community center, and a woman walking past glanced at her and smiled at the laugh without knowing why, the way you smile at the evidence of someone else's uncomplicated joy. He called that evening. Not to say much, just to say that Callie had insisted, and that he agreed with her, that Sophie had to come back and tell them in person. You could just tell her, Sophie said. She wants to hear it from you. A pause. Outside her apartment window, the city was doing its ordinary evening things. Traffic, voices, the particular music of a place that doesn't go quiet. Okay, she said, for what felt like the third time, or maybe the fourth, and every time it had been the right answer. Saturday, he said. Saturday, she agreed. Callie answered the door in her rain boots again. Sophie had come to understand that the rain boots were not about rain. They were about readiness, about being prepared for whatever the day turned out to need. She thought that was probably the best approach available. You got the job, Callie said. It was not a question. I got the job, Sophie confirmed. Callie nodded with the gravity of someone whose confidence has been vindicated. Come in, she said. Dad made soup. Sophie came in. The Christmas tree was still up, slightly past its seasonal moment, but nobody had mentioned it. and the living room was warm and smelled like something with garlic and thyme. And Nathan appeared from the kitchen doorway with a dish towel over his shoulder, and an expression that was trying to be ordinary and wasn't quite managing it. "Hey," he said. "Hey," she said. Callie looked between them with the calm assessment of a child who had already decided how this was going to go and was simply waiting for the adults to catch up. Outside, the snow had started again, quiet and unhurried, the way it does when it has nowhere particular to be. Sophie looked at the tree, at the popsicle stick star, at the paper chains, at the crayon drawings turned into ornaments by someone who thought they were worth preserving. She thought about the bus stop, about the cold, about a small face pressed to a truck window, pointing. She thought about how sometimes the smallest redirections, a child who notices, a stranger who stops, a single word said into the snow, turn out to be the ones that matter most. She unwound her scarf. She stayed. Not every door that closes is a loss. Sometimes the ones that close are just making room for the one that a curly-haired 4-year-old in rain boots is about to open. The end.